So, before let me turn the heater off real quick. So, I have gotten some requests to make videos about current events and subjects that are very controversial to a lot of people. But before I do any of that, I was actually in the middle of recording another video, but I stopped and thought to myself, before I talk about any of that, I should make this one first. And the title of this video is going to be, you have the truth, then you have everything else. Now, I apologize in advance for my appearance. I woke up a few hours ago, but I didn't really get my day started yet. So I didn't comb my hair. I already took a shower. I shaved my facial hair a bit to get it to look the way I want. But other than that, I haven't gotten my day started. But it's actually going to go in correlation with what I'm going to talk about in the video. So let's get right into it. Because when I make more serious videos about specific topics, I'm probably going to have this video in one of the corners, because this is a very important concept for people to understand if they ever want to go further with obtaining knowledge in life. And you have to understand this core fact. You have what is true, then you have everything else. What do I mean by that? So, a lot of the arguments and disagreements that people have with me isn't even because I'll say something that's wrong. Usually people will get angry or offended at how I say the truth or how I don't sugarcoat reality. And, Coach Z said back in the day, I am not your mommy, I am a coach. Well, I don't identify myself as a coach, But what I will say is this, as humans, we have the ability to use our free will to overthink things, I should say. Animals, they live very simple lives. They wake up, if they're not domesticated, they wake up in the morning, they go and they hunt for food. Then they sleep if they survive that day. Then they wake up, they handle the business, and then, they eat, sleep, handle their business, repeat. Domesticated animals, they wake up in the morning, they go and they greet the masters. The masters give them food, the masters play with them, their masters, give them comfortability. And then they go to sleep at the end of the night. Animals aren't really doing a whole lot of overthinking. Cats are a special exception. Sometimes you'll see them analyze something for 2 minutes straight before making a decision. But generally speaking, most animals, they don't really spend most of their lives overthinking something. Humans, on the other hand, you can tell a human being the truth about something, and if the truth doesn't fit their agenda, or if the truth doesn't fit what they believe in life, they'll take the truth and they'll try to do mental gymnastics and twist it around and alter it to fit whatever it is they want whatever it is their perception wants it to be. And you can't do that, guys. So, before I talk about more serious topics like, the police brutality shit, that's a heavily requested one, and whatnot, I want guys to understand this core fundamental principle. To accurately judge a situation, you must accurately articulate the truth and the facts regarding a situation. If somebody walks up to you and tells you that 2 + 2 = 4, you can't take the truth that 2 + 2 = 4 and then twist it and bend it around because you don't like the way it sounds, because it hurts your feelings or it directly conflicts with what you've been taught to believe for most of your life, or because it shatters your perception of reality. One guy left a comment on my communist video where I was explaining, the origins of the communist stuff, and I'll put it in the description below for people that haven't seen it. He was like, you talk a lot about how you found out that these guys were puppets, but you never specified how you came across that information. And even trying to explain that would be like a 2-hour long video, What I will say is this, as a little kid, I was faced with the truth about what I believed at the time. And I could do one of two things. I could reject the truth and cling to my own personal beliefs, because my own personal beliefs were, in my mind, keeping me safe, making me feel secure, shielding me from the rest of the world. Or I could shut the fuck up, suck up my pride, suck up my ego, and just accept the truth for what it was. And I chose to accept the truth for what it was. And keep in mind, I was a 13-year-old kid. I'm 27 now. You got people that are 27 and older, grown men, grown women, grown adults, that still have not mastered this ability. Because to go further in life, guys, to learn more information in life, to rise above where you're trying to rise above, you need to acknowledge the truth about the situation. The truth, period. Now, people will probably say that I'm talking in circles, but let me give you guys an example. If you were taught something your entire life for 20 years, the root word of belief is lie, okay? Belief, one definition for the word belief is a substitution for the truth. So if for 20 years you were taught a substitution for the truth, and then you encountered an individual that showed you some enlightenment, so to speak, that presented you with the raw truth uncut, and it directly conflicted with what you believed in, what are you going to do? Now, most people will say, well, they won't say this out loud, but here's what most people will do. They'll reject the truth, and they'll try to bend reality to fit in with what they've been taught to believe. You take the games I used to play, for example. If you call somebody bad at the game and that was the truth, they would then spend mental gymnastics to try to twist it around. Oh, I may be bad at a game, but I'm good at real life. Some bullshit, right? I was asked on my post two things, right? This one individual asked me two things. Chris, do you consider yourself an intellectual? And do you think that people should always follow the path of high resistance to live an optimal life? Because in the past I made a video saying sheep take the path of least resistance. And I'm going to answer that question this way. A main reason I have a problem, well, people have a problem with me when, let me take a sip of tea real quick. A main reason people have a problem with me when we talk about these topics that require a brain is because I make it clear from the start. I don't care about your opinion. I don't care about your perception. I don't care about your perspective. I don't care about your beliefs, your philosophies, your ideologies, your way of life, your culture, your heritage. None of that shit. The only thing I care about is the truth. What is true, what will be true, what was true, the truth. The truth is absolute, and the truth never contradicts. Okay? A very easy way that you can tell if something is false is if it contradicts. Example. Let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example that everybody can relate to. Let's say you have somebody that says they prefer to be in a relationship with somebody that treats them like a king, or somebody that treats them like a princess. Yet you look at their dating history, and they've mostly only dated people that are the opposite of that. It contradicts. The truth never contradicts. 2 + 2 = 4 doesn't contradict. So, if somebody's telling you something, and what they're saying out of their mouths is contradicting, then you know it's not true. It's like, and I think I know how I want to reel this in. So, with a lot of political and ideologies and philosophies, and culture things that people discuss, there's a lot of contradictions. Even when people present their side of the argument, there's a lot of contradictions. Because people are not arguing based around the truth. Because you can't argue with the truth. If you know what the truth is, you either accept it or reject it. There's really nothing to argue about. But the reason there's arguments and contradictions is because people, generally speaking, don't want to accept the truth. If you never accept the truth, no matter how hard it is, no matter how hard it contradicts with your beliefs and your way of life and your philosophy, you will be limiting how far you can go in life. So to answer the question of, do I think you need to follow the path of high resistance in order to live an optimal life? I'll answer it this way. To see your full potential, to go as far as you can go, you need to take the path that most people do not travel. Understand something, guys. Most people do not want the truth. Most people do not want to live in harmony with what is true. Most people want to live in harmony with lies. They want to live in harmony with fairy tales. You know what I'm saying? For those of y'all that followed me from the Toontown days, do y'all remember what happened when Toontown was closing? You had people making videos crying that their favorite game was closing. They couldn't believe it. They didn't want to believe that it was true. Right? And we saw this coming for a long time. Because people were making Toontown 2.0 videos like we were going to get a 2.0. And then a month later, it was announced that the game was closing. You know what I'm saying? You know. And this is what I mean about the truth never contradicting. If a game company is going to make a 2.0 for a game, they're going to be putting more money into the community, not less. How are they going to make a 2.0 if they're putting less money into the community? That's a contradiction. The truth doesn't contradict. I'm not on here to make friends, and I'm not on here to get people to like me. You know, I'm not on here even to get a lot of views, right? But before I go into more serious topics, this is something that I have to stress so that people understand it, right? You know, a main reason last year I talked about narcissism so much in my videos is because a narcissist, they have an inability to ever admit that they're wrong. And you have to admit that you're wrong in order to accept the truth. Because if you don't know the truth and you encounter the truth later on, you first have to admit that what you thought before was wrong in order for you to accept the new information that's coming in. My last video where I was talking about communism, this is what I had to do. I thought my idols were very intelligent men that came from nothing, that made their own dynasties, that made their own destinies, my bad, that established their own fate. Later on, when I encountered the truth of the matter, that they were just puppets and they had a machine behind them the entire time, I had to come to face with reality. And again, somebody wanted me to explain, you know, what do I mean by machine? Do I mean like spiritually or philosophy or all these other fancy words that are the opposite of what is true? DJ Hype said it best. You have what you believe, and the root word of belief is lie. Then you have what is actually true. Now, I'm not a man of philosophy. When I was 13, I was a communist. I'm not a communist anymore. I'm not a man of ideologies. I am a man of truth. A common question I get asked is, do I think it's ever possible for an ultimate communist utopia to exist? And I'm going to answer this question this way. It's never explained in our history books, and I'm speaking entirely as a United States citizen, as an American. I can't speak for other countries because I don't know what other countries learn in their textbooks. You know, this is Japanese because I study a lot of Japanese history and shit too. But in our history books, we're never taught, again, his story. Keep that in mind. In our his story books, We're never taught that there was a point in time where humans had no government, where humans had no rulers, no judges, no bosses, no money. You know, it was just humans living as individuals with the families that they created and surviving based off of each individual's ability working together. The truth of the matter is this: in order for such a state to exist again in humanity, most people would have to be capable of critical thinking, capable of accepting the truth when it's presented to them, and capable of tossing aside their egos and their beliefs in favor for reality in order to work together to keep the utopia alive. Is that possible? Is it possible for such a state to exist right now? And I don't know the truth to that question, so I can't speak on it, you know? Because I only care about the truth, right? And there's going to be times in your life where the truth is going to be very hard to accept. You're going to run into it, and it's going to be like a brick wall. And if you're not used to just accepting the truth in its rawest form, your instinct is going to be to run away. And most people run away. The path of least resistance is the path that is followed the most by, the masses. You run and 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 you run from the truth until you hit a brick wall again. You hit a point where you can't run anymore. And usually by the time people run into the point where they can't run anymore, that's already the point where irreversible damage has been done. So, you got people that have played these games since they were 10. The game closed. Addicts kept the servers up. So people for the next 10 years don't leave the house, don't live in reality. They isolate themselves in their rooms and they play these games all day. And they have a very shielded perspective of reality. You especially see this in games like Toontown and Pirate 101. So then when a guy like me comes and tells people this is how things actually are, because they're not used to anybody in their circle telling them, I see why you think the way you do. However, this is the truth and here's why you're wrong. It's getting to a point where people go out of their way, especially on the internet, to just surround themselves with yes men and people that never deviate from what they believe and what their opinions are. I get accused of this all the time because some of the things that I say, the people that do this cannot possibly comprehend that their entire way of living is based on a false narrative. It takes a certain amount of humility to admit everything you've ever been taught is a lie. Most people never do this. Understand, the world we live in right now was carefully crafted around us. From the minute you're born to the minute you go to school, you go to pre-K, kindergarten, middle school, high school, college. It was all crafted with a certain goal in mind generations before you were born. We were born in the United States of America, and this country was founded 300 years before we were born. This continent has been around millions, depending on who you ask, billions of years before we were born. This planet Earth, it's been around for billions, depending on who you ask, trillions of years before the concept of life was even conceived in the form we know it today. So this is what I'm trying to say, guys. When you're born and when you're growing up and when you're a cog in the system, so to speak, when you're running through the system, there are things that you will never see unless you question the system itself. If the system is a straight line and you're walking on that straight line and you're only going on the straight line, you will never see anything that deviates from that line. My senior year in high school, man, I didn't know what to do because all my teachers, all my counselors, man, all this propaganda was bombarding my head with, if I don't decide what I want to do right now, and if I don't pick a good college on where I want to go next year, I'm screwed. My life is over. You know what I'm saying? Take another sip of tea real quick. For weak individuals, fear is the ultimate tool. Weak individuals will not act and go against the path of least resistance out of fear. Whether that be fear of death, fear of pain, fear of emotional trauma, fear of being judged, or fear of the unknown and uncertainty. I went to college for a year out of fear. Because as a 17-year-old kid, at the time, I was a weak individual. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was a strong individual because I'm on the wrestling team. I'm going back at home after wrestling practice, getting in fights every day, proving my metal, so to speak. I'm thinking I'm a tough guy, man. I'm, fighting kids on the block every day. I'm wrestling every day, man. I'm thinking I'm tough. I'm thinking I'm made of steel. But the reality is I succumbed to the fear that most of my other peers succumbed to at 17. And that was the fear of you got to walk that line. You got to go with the system, because if you go against the system, your life is over and you're going to be thoroughly screwed. I'm here to tell you the reality of this. If it's the truth that you seek, you have to deviate from what is popular. You have to deviate away from the majority opinion. I started a playlist on my channel called Majority Opinion versus the Truth. And you will see that what is true greatly goes against what popular opinion is, In a police academy, we are warned in advance that the court of law is not about what is true. The court of law is about what you can prove. Listen to what I just said carefully. We learned this in the police academy. Okay? And they teach this to all of their classes. They teach this to their state police, their natural resources police, their home detention unit, their SWAT, their correctional officers, their correctional deputies, their sheriffs. They teach this to all of their classes. That court is not about what is true. It is about what you can prove. Now, what I'm about to say is going to mindfuck some people. Sometimes you can't prove the truth. If a man has HIV and he has sex with an individual's mother and gives the individual's mother HIV, he can't prove that he had sex with that person's mother. He can't prove it. He didn't record it. It's his word against hers. The mother denies she ever slept with that man, but she has HIV now. The truth of the matter is he gave that woman an STD, but he cannot prove it. See, often when I say things, people will be like, prove it. If you can't prove it, then it's not true. Because this is the mentality that they have been conditioned with the system. The system has you think you have to prove. And if the majority of people don't accept your lack of proof, then what the truth is isn't actually true. This is very important. How do murderers get found innocent in the court of law? Because even though they committed the murder, even though the truth of the matter is they caught a body, because the courts lack the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And what does beyond a reasonable doubt mean? It means that in a jury of your peers, you cannot get them to believe that you did the crime. And remember, the root word of belief is lie. Belief is defined as a substitution for the truth. People will dismiss this as an extreme example, but it goes entirely to my point. Okay? Something else we learned in the academy. Less than 1% of people that commit crimes on a daily basis ever get caught for the crimes. Less than 1% of the people that get caught for the crime ever get arrested for the crime. Less than 1% of the people arrested for the crime ever get found guilty for the crime. So when you understand, and it makes perfect sense because they say the average person in America commits 2 felonies a day without even realizing it. I mean, me, for example, I've had my driver's license since I was 17. I speed every day. Speeding is a crime. Now, I can't prove that I speed every day, though. This is the loophole. I've only been pulled over for speeding twice. I'm 27 right now. So let's do the math, guys. So you figure 365 times 10. That's 3,625 days, right? Of speeding. Out of those 3,625 days, I've only been caught twice for that crime. So do the math. 2 out of 3,625 is like what? I mean, that's like what? 0.1% or some shit? It's astronomically low. But when you understand, and this is what I'm trying to say. When you're growing up, the system teaches you, don't commit crimes, you'll get caught, you go to prison forever. The reality of that is, the system itself cannot catch you committing most crimes. That's why the stereotype is that criminals that break the law and get found guilty are dumbasses because they're the dummies that got caught. I went on a bit of a tangent, but I think you guys get the point I'm trying to make now. To see the truth from what it is, you have to deviate from the majority thinking. Most people don't think like this. Most people think if I commit a crime, I'm going to get caught, so let me not do that crime. They don't think, well, barely anybody gets prosecuted for crimes, so let me commit the crime because the chances of me getting caught are astronomically low. Now, I'm not out here encouraging anybody to be criminals. But in order to go further with what you want to do in life, you have to fully accept the truth, right? A lot of people want to lie to themselves and act like people that are rapists, people that are murderers, people that are pedophiles, people that do X, Y, and Z get caught every time they commit the crime. And unfortunately, that's not the case, guys. There's something like 2 million untested rape kits in America alone that are just sitting in a DNA lab not being used. That's at least 2 million rape cases that have not been resolved, and the person that committed the rapes has not been prosecuted and sent to prison. This is the truth. This is the reality of it. Now, that's going to make a lot of people angry. That's going to make a lot of people want to run away from the truth. But the reason I'm putting this video up first before I talk about anything more serious is that I want you guys to understand that in order to fully understand what goes on with these situations, you have to be able to accept the truth when it's presented to you. You know, the system has you trained and indoctrinated in a certain way so that you don't see the reality of things when reality presents itself to you. You know? If you see somebody walking down the street and you see the police run and tackle them to the ground and arrest them, the false illusion that we live in will have you perceive that he must be doing something wrong in order for the cops to stop him in the first place. Then later on, when you learn he was completely innocent and that those cops just needed to meet the arrest quota for the month, you know, you reject what you just heard because it doesn't fit your narrative. It doesn't fit the reality that you've created for yourself in your mind. Understand something. The world that was created around us before we were even born, I'm not blaming the world for that. I'm not blaming anybody. Because at the end of the day, the illusion presented to you, you have to use your own free will to accept and live in the first place. When you see things for what it really is, and you fully accept and embrace the truth, the illusion doesn't affect you. So, This video's going on a little bit longer than I wanted it to be honest with you, and I think I'm saying too much in the video. But this video mainly is to just get people to think more deeply. So in the future, when I do make more serious videos, I'll put this video on the side. Because, you know, you have what is true, then you have everything else. Everything else means lies, beliefs, which is the root word of belief is lie, philosophy, ideology, you know, religion, culture, politics, you know, way of life, all that other shit that doesn't matter when it comes to the truth. Now, I know somebody's probably going to ask, well, what if accepting the truth is detrimental to your life? Here's what I got to say about that. The truth may be hard and detrimental at first, but it will be better for you in the long run. Versus the lie will be sweet and sugar-coated to you at first as a presentation, but it will be detrimental to you in the long run. Really, it's all about deciding in life, do you want to take the long-term path of high resistance that will make you the best person you can possibly be for your life? Or do you want to, you know, take what's easier, take the path of least resistance, and be the worst person you can possibly be for, you know, your specific life, and get the short-term rewards for the long-term failures? I'd rather get the short-term failures for the long-term benefits, personally. Life is a marathon, and I'm in this for the long run. So that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. As usual, any comments, disagreements, debates, concerns, leave it in the comments below, and I'll get to those. Catch you on the next one.